everyone, and I'm Autobot Sonic the Telltale Gamer, bringing laser ring Transformers, Telltale games, and more. For this week's EarthSpark review, we are going to be looking at Season 2, Episode 7, The Imposters. Now, you might have been expecting a little Among Us reference in there, you might expect me to make a little joke at Among Us, but I couldn't be bothered to make it. Just like how, unfortunately, I don't think 88 Pictures put much effort into this episode. And I hate being negative, you know me. I'm all about being positive and always trying to find the best and even subpar things. But this time, I've got nothing. Unfortunately, this is not only my least favorite episode of EarthSpark Season 2 so far, but probably the worst episode of EarthSpark in general, in my opinion. And it's so weird, because now that's 2 episodes I remember, like, sort of liking / like, being okay with when I first watched the episode, but after rewatching and taking a more critical lens, no, I didn't like this episode. There's little to no redeeming qualities about it, and unfortunately, it was just a miss in my opinion. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and see why I think so lowly of this episode. The Imposters intro is kind of a continuation of how the last episode, Spitfire, ended, where we followed Spitfire inside of Twitch's body being found by Robbie and the rest of the Maltos. This time we see Aftermath going after Spitfire, and as Aftermath later explains to Spitfire, or to Twitch in Spitfire's body later on in this intro, the reason why he was able to track her down was because apparently he had sensed Spitfire the minute she was born, and apparently all Chaos Terrans sort of share a similar psychic connection that the regular Terrans do. So I do think that's a nice little bit of world building, that despite them not being the technically true Terrans, the Chaos Terrans still inherit some same qualities as the other Terrans, and I think that's a cool little thing. So anyway, Aftermath finds Twitch in Spitfire's body in the quarry, not realizing though that it's Twitch though, and Twitch is I keep confusing myself because I want to say Spitfire, but it's Twitch in Spitfire's body, and Twitch is confused by why Aftermath's calling her Spitfire until she realizes, like, looks at herself in a puddle of water and realizes that she is Spitfire. And now another thing, though, I am going to say that I do like about this episode is the fact that when Spitfire and Twitch swap bodies, we're not just getting Zelda Williams' voice coming out of Twitch's body or Catherine Kavari's voice coming out of Spitfire's body. Zelda Williams here is actually playing Twitch inside Spitfire's body. Meanwhile, Catherine Kavari is being Spitfire inside Twitch's body. I think I always love that in body swap episodes where characters swap bodies, but their voice stay the same. So in this case, Zelda Williams is playing a totally different character, Catherine Kavari is playing a totally different character. And it's cool to see how Catherine Kavari plays Spitfire pretending to be Twitch, and how Zelda Williams plays Twitch pretending to be Spitfire. It's a really nice thing that I do like, in my opinion. But anyway, after Aftermath finds Twitch, he takes her back to the Decepticon HQ, still believing that she's Spitfire, and it's at this point that Twitch notices the huge truck full of cave water that Aftermath had taken from the Emberstone cave back in episode 5, and she comments on this saying, "Oh, that's the cave water that you stole from the Maltos." And then Aftermath says this:
"The stolen cave water. I heard about it from the Maltos."
Yeah, they never saw it coming.
And just like that, that confirms my worst fears about Aftermath's character back in episode 5. So, if you remember my review of episode 5 Togetherness, I said that I wasn't really sure if Aftermath intentionally took the cave water knowing full well that he was betraying Jawbreaker. I thought it was more so a misunderstanding where Jawbreaker said, "Oh, take everything, take anything, as much as you need." But this confirms that, as Aftermath says, like, "Oh, they never saw it coming," that, in my mind, that just straight up says that Aftermath unfortunately did betray Jawbreaker. And to me, that doesn't sit well with me, because it just kind of ruins the supposed friendship that Aftermath and Jawbreaker had. That implies then that Aftermath was just playing Jawbreaker the whole time, and it really makes Aftermath such an unsympathetic character. And it seems so minor that, like, I'm picking out this one piece of dialogue, but really, this one piece of dialogue ruins Aftermath's character. And as someone who thought, like, oh, Aftermath was just, like, a bad, like, he was raised in a bad, like, environment that break down the other Decepticons sort of maybe didn't teach him well. But this kind of basically implies that he was intentionally betraying Jawbreaker, but at the same time, though, you could say maybe break down the other Decepticons did like, sort of teach Aftermath to lie and betray and deceive. But still, though, it really doesn't look good that he seemingly was playing Jawbreaker the whole time after he opened up to him with such an intimate act of cyber syncing with him. Though at the same time, though, as upset as I am that this sort of ruins Aftermath's character for me, it does make Jawbreaker's character a lot more tragic. The fact that he truly was betrayed by Aftermath, and that really even more justifies that why he was so weary of Spitfire back in the last episode. That I do like, and is another thing. So while I am upset that this ruins Aftermath's character, in my opinion, I do like the fact that it makes Jawbreaker far more tragic, and I really like that. I really want Jawbreaker to get a win in the future and get a true friend. So meanwhile, Spitfire, with everyone still believing she's Twitch, is back at the Autobot base being, like, checked on by Wheeljack to make sure there's no big damage done to her. And at the whole time, Spitfire is struggling to try and be, like, happy-go-lucky Twitch, where everyone is so concerned about her, though Spitfire's just kind of really annoyed with it, but has to, like, try and pretend that she's, like, enjoying all the company. And so Wheeljack is mentioning to Dot and Alex that Twitch is seemingly like 99% fine, just still has some minor things need to be worked out. And Dot tries to ask Twitch, not knowing it's Spitfire, if she'll still be okay for the Autobot mission, which Spitfire constantly says that she'll be okay for. But Robbie and Dot, though, still don't believe that that Twitch is totally okay. So Dot instead asks Robbie to go on the Autobot mission with Spitfire. And at this point, Spitfire doesn't want to do it, but then Dot tells her that if she doesn't go with him, then she's not going on the mission at all. So Spitfire begrudgingly agrees to go on it with Robbie, and that's where we get explained what the mission is. So Spitfire and Robbie go with Dot to see Optimus and Alita, where they reveal to her that the Autobot mission that she's been picked for is to act as basically a scout / like lookout for Optimus and Alita and Dot as they go to apparently deliver Mandroid's spear tail weapon he used back in the Season 1 finale to a off-site location. And this episode actually gives Mandroid's spear weapon a proper name, calling it the Cyber Slayer, which I think is a good fitting name for it, considering what it did to Shockwave and all the other possessed Autobots back in the Season 1 finale. And Spitfire asks why are they moving to the Cyber Slayer. Optimus explains that after Ravage broke into the Autobot base back in episode 3, none of their like most valuable tech is really like safe anymore. So Alita then explains that they're going to deliver the Cyber Slayer out of Decepticon hands to somewhere off-site and much safer until they can figure out a way to properly destroy it. So at this point, Spitfire is kind of deflated, knowing that just basically she's a glorified bodyguard for the Cyber Slayer. So she kind of vents her frustration a bit to Robbie, which Robbie is a little bit confused by. But so at this point, Spitfire and Robbie go home for the night while they get ready for the mission the next day. It's at this point also that Twitch in Spitfire's body sneaks away from Decepticon HQ after she grows the ire of Starscream and everyone, because at this point, when she was meeting with Starscream, Scarab, and Novastorm, or eavesdropping on their conversation, she overheard that apparently Starscream and the other Decepticons know already that the Cyber Slayer is being moved from what Ravage did back in episode 3. And so Starscream is going to have all the Seekers ambush Optimus and Alita to steal a Cyber Slayer for themselves. So Twitch in Spitfire's body goes to the Malto homestead that night to try and warn Robbie about it. But of course, Robbie, not realizing that it's actually Twitch, is confused by seeing Spitfire, because he believes at first that it's just a big trick by Spitfire to try and convince him that it's Twitch, but Twitch is trying to explain that it is her. But before she can, that's when Spitfire comes out in Twitch's body, and the two of them get into a little scuffle, like grappling with each other, where Spitfire taunts Twitch further, saying that, oh, now I've got your family, now you're gonna have nothing, just like you left me with back during the race. And as the two of them are struggling, Robbie sees the two of them fighting, and basically Spitfire acts like she does like the whole thing that Swindle did fighting Bumblebee back in episode 4 of season 1, where she pretends to have been hurt by Twitch. So Robbie jumps out into his cyber suit, immediately defending Spitfire against Twitch, not realizing though that it's Twitch. And he tells Spitfire, or Twitch in Spitfire's body, to get lost and that she's not welcome in here anymore. Though there is something I really do like about this, and that when Robbie comes out to defend Spitfire, he actually pulls out 2 cyber Cali sticks, which is really, really cool considering Robbie's heritage as an African-American Filipino kid. And we saw back in season 1, episode 6, that Alex did teach him the art of artists. And I think that's so cool now that besides Robbie having his cyber shield like he had throughout most of season 1 and now throughout season 2, he now has a proper melee weapon to use in the form of cyber Cali stick, similarly to how Mo had her cyber blade, but also the cyber broadsword that she used against the Quintesson Executioner back in episode 2 of this season. So again, that's another little thing that I do like about this episode, but that's unfortunately where the end of the pros of this episode end, because unfortunately this episode is bogged down by tons, and I mean a ton, of facial animation errors and just really, really lazy facial animations where everyone just seems to have the same face for most of this episode. Robbie, Twitch, and Dot and Alex's faces, even though Alex doesn't even say anything, but mostly Dot, Robbie, and Twitch, who are kind of the main characters episode. And by Twitch, I should say Spitfire in Twitch's body. All their faces are just so weird in this episode. They're either super stiff or their facial animations don't match at all. Like, there's this one point where Spitfire should be talking angry, or she should be angry, and later on this episode when she and Twitch get into another fight, but her face just is constantly smiling the whole time for some reason, and it's so weird. Like, why is her face acting like this? And it's just, it doesn't fit. And then even look at this in this one bit where Spitfire, or Twitch in Spitfire's body, leaves after Robbie forces her to leave the Malto homestead, and Spitfire hugs Robbie in Twitch's body, and as she's speaking, the lip syncing doesn't match Catherine Kavari's voice at all. Like, here, look at this.
Yeah, that's the stuff. Nothing better than a Malto sibling hug.
What I just showed you is in no way edited footage. I did not intentionally edit this footage to make it look bad. The audio really is that out of sync in this one clip, and I don't know how they did this, because literally 88 Pictures, even at its worst before, back in the butterfly effect, it wasn't so jarringly bad as this. So what happened? Why did this happen? I get that 88 Pictures is an Indian-based animation studio, and English isn't really a lot of the animator's first language, but you've literally done it perfectly throughout the past 6 episodes. Why did you mess it up in this moment? And on a different note, how did Nickelodeon and like other like editors like who are American or at least speak English their first language not see this and say, hey, this isn't synced properly, you should really fix this? Why did this error make it to the final version? I don't understand, and it just comes across as really lazy. I hate saying that because I know how hard 88 Pictures worked on this to make sure it is, but the fact that this kind of error I would expect like in a rough draft, how did this make it to the final version? I don't understand it. But anyway, after that we cut to the next day where Robbie and Spitfire are now properly ready to go on their mission to protect the Cyber Slayer. However, Wheeljack needs to do some final tests on it before they can do it. And when Spitfire gets a little too handsy with the Cyber Slayer, wanting to see what it's about, Wheeljack gets concerned by this and tells Robbie and Spitfire to guard it outside the lab, which Spitfire is even more frustrated with. And Robbie is picking up on this, asking her if she wants some cave water, which I guess they got some more after even after Aftermath stole it all, so either that's an error or the cave water just sort of came back, similarly to how it did back in season 1 with episode 21. It could be that as well. But anyway, as Robbie leaves to get cave water for Spitfire, she goes back into the lab despite Wheeljack's pleas, and he explains to her that there's something that bugged him ever since she came back to the Autobot base, and that was when Spitfire touched the Cyber Slayer. It caused a little surge of what Wheeljack calls chaos energy, and Spitfire tries to pass it off that, oh, Spitfire tried to take over my body, so yeah, of course maybe there's gonna be some chaos energy. But Wheeljack doesn't believe her, and then instead, to test her, asks her what does she always call Wheeljack, and At first, Spitfire tries to play it off in a way like, oh, your name's, I always call you Jackie, right? Which, of course, is a nice little reference to Transformers Prime, how Bulkhead always called Wheeljack in that show Jackie. But, of course, Wheeljack then realizes at this point that it's not Twitch, it's actually Spitfire, because he tells her, oh, well, the real Twitch always calls me Dad, too. So, right before he can go and try and get the Cyber Slayer away from her, Spitfire, like, hacks all the electronics in the room, turn it off, steals the Cyber Slayer, and stabs Wheeljack with it. So, I don't know why, but for some reason, this episode makes it seem like Spitfire kills Wheeljack. And it even, literally the last time we see Wheeljack in this episode, he's presumably dead with Dot, like, looking at his body really sadly. And it's so confusing because, I mean, I get it because we saw Mandroid stab Shockwave with a Cyber Slayer back in Season 1, and he explains, too, that it's not lethal to true Cybertronians. It just drains all the energon out of them until they get refueled. So they're sort of dead, but not really until they get refueled. He only explains that only Terrans stabbed by the Cyber Slayer are killed by it. If a Terran got stabbed by it, they would die, but not an actual Cybertronian. But for some reason, though, still, this episode makes it a huge deal that Spitfire stabs Wheeljack with a Cyber Slayer, and I want to know why, because the episode makes it really seem like he's dead, and you don't know that unless you see him, like, blinking a missed shot in the last episode of Dispatch. You'll see him alive and well. But yeah, it seems like he's dead, but he's not. And again, that's another thing I just don't like about this episode. But anyway, now that the cat's out of the bag, Spitfire's trying to run out of the base with the Cyber Slayer. And it's at the same point when Twitch actually comes to the Autobot base, where after she tries to cause as much trouble in the Decepticon HQ as possible to try and stall Starscream and the other Seekers from attacking them. Twitch then runs to the Autobot base trying to explain to Optimus and Alita that she truly is Twitch and that the Twitch that they've been talking to is actually Spitfire. So she goes in to try and warn Robbie about it, she learns from them that Robbie is with Spitfire. And again, Spitfire and Twitch get into a little, like, competition with Robbie where he's confused as to who is the real Twitch. And so Robbie basically asks Spitfire and Twitch a bunch of questions, asking, like, who's the real Twitch. And Twitch, of course, in Spitfire's body, is able to answer them by correctly guessing his favorite food and something that only the real Twitch would know about him. So because of this, Robbie hastily apologizes to her for confusing her for Spitfire, and that's when Spitfire runs away with the Cyber Slayer, trying to get away with it. Though at this point, Twitch and Robbie both chase after her. Though after Spitfire nearly kills Robbie by knocking him off Twitch, Twitch leaves Robbie behind to go after Spitfire herself, which Robbie agrees with. After that, Twitch and Spitfire get into another little fight, which I do like this fight for a little bit, including a little spat that Optimus and Alita have with Soundwave, Skywarp, and Nova Storm. Lillian Fiedler animated this episode as well, or storyboarded this episode, and while I can't confirm what scenes she did do, the animation here, like the fight choreography, though, is good. So anyway, the fight ends between Twitch and Spitfire because now Twitch has access to all of Spitfire's 2.0 abilities. So where Twitch had beaten Spitfire back in episode 6 just with her pure skill, she now has her skill plus all of Spitfire's new abilities. So she easily overpowers Spitfire in Twitch's body and uses her pairing mode to properly take control of her body and readjust their minds together, where they do another little tornado together full of chaos energy, and that causes Spitfire and Twitch to swap bodies again. However, during this, though, Spitfire manages to get away with the Cyber Slayer and gets found by Aftermath, who brings it back to Starscream as sort of like a peace offering to make up for the fact that Twitch ruined her reputation in Spitfire's body. And so, that was my review of Transformers EarthSpark Season 2, Episode 7, The Imposters. If I had to rate this episode, I would sadly give it a 3 out of 10. Easily, not only just the worst episode of Season 2 so far, probably beats Stowed Away Stowaways as the worst episode of EarthSpark in general. I was not a fan of just how jarring the animation errors and just lack of facial animations were this episode. To the point where some facial animations are even incorrect, like where Twitch and Spitfire are fighting and Spitfire and Twitch's body is just giving the wrong, like, facial animations. And the improper lip syncing, Robbie and Dot's weird facial animations. This episode just, it's so jarring, and normally I can excuse this stuff, like, at least with the Butterfly Effect, it was a cute story and had an entertaining premise. With this, there's nothing entertaining about it at all, really, for the most part. The best parts about it are the fight between Twitch and Spitfire, and a few little, like, lore implications with Chaos Terrans. Not to mention the beginning with one line of dialogue literally ruining Aftermath's character for me. It's just an absolutely bad episode. I'm sorry, but this was not a good episode. But please, if just because I'm saying this episode is bad, don't go off to, like, Twitter or YouTube and making videos and stuff saying, oh, 88 Pictures sucks at their job. Clearly, they're able to do good based on everything else. I just don't know why they didn't put, or seemed not to put, any effort into this. It just boggles me how they're able to do so much good with the rest of this season, and yet this is where they drop the ball. I don't know, but anyway, I'm really sorry about being so negative about this, but I just can't ignore it. I can't say in good faith this was a good episode. It wasn't. But anyway, that's it for this review. I'll be back next week with episode 8, Dude, Where's My Trailer, which I can thankfully say is a much better episode. If you like this review, be sure to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and I will see you guys later.